Ladies and gentlemen, this is Nate Crosby, your host for today and forever, and welcome back to another episode of the Lawyers in the Making podcast, where it is my job to focus on the unique journeys to the law and law school of professionals in the legal field and law students. Let's talk about what we're doing today, because today we have another incredible guest. She is an American University Washington College of Law graduate and works as the founder and chief empowerment officer at Yeve Coaching and Consulting. She's held past positions as a director and assistant general counsel at Brex and as counsel to Wilmer Hale. Excited to have her on the podcast today, Miss Yeve Chitiga. Before getting into the episode today, a few minutes of ads now. For no ads in the middle, no ads at the end. To support this podcast, please be sure to check out all the sponsors below: Start LSAT, Rhetoric, and LisaBlaster.com. If these sponsors bring great interest to you, please check out the sponsor links below in the description. I love them, and I hope you love them as much as I do. And of course, be sure to check us out at lawyersinthemaking.substack.com. One word, lawyersinthemaking.substack.com. Start LSAT, started by former guest Alden Spratt, 21-year-old superstar and now an official sponsor of the Lawyers in the Making podcast. Start LSAT was built on breaking down barriers, allowing anyone access to high-quality LSAT prep. After receiving a 180 perfect score on his LSAT, yes, 180, Alden began building Start LSAT. Start LSAT includes 51 video modules, 400 official LSAT questions, study tips and tricks, and the techniques that took Alden to achieve that 180 perfect score. All for the low price of $110. Yes, that's right, $110. And when using code LITM10, you can get 10% off the Start LSAT self-paced course. But there's more. By using the code LITM100 at checkout, you also get $100 off Alden's upcoming 10-week course for the January LSAT. This 10-week course includes one-on-one tutoring, live classes, the Start LSAT self-paced course with 50-plus modules, weekly classes, access to Law Hub Advantage, and a direct line to the superstar himself, Alden. Alden focuses on building the muscles of your LSAT skills, training them, and making you unstoppable. Check out Start LSAT in the podcast description below at startlsat.com, where you can find offers for the course and one-on-one tutoring. And be sure to use those promo codes LITM100 at checkout for $100 off the 10-week course and LITM10 for 10% off the Start LSAT self-paced course. That is at startlsat.com, one word, startlsat.com, in the description below. Now it's time to talk about one of the sponsors of this podcast, Rhetoric. Rhetoric is a legal tech company that leverages AI to help litigators tailor their arguments to be more persuasive by understanding judges' preferences and tendencies based on their actual filings. A recent study published in Harvard Business Review shows that mirroring a judge's language preferences can increase your odds of success in litigation by 20% or more, and that is exactly what Rhetoric does for you. Back on episode 25, I had the privilege of having Luke Yangling, a good friend of mine and a former guest of the podcast, and from there, Rhetoric thus became a sponsor of the podcast. But now, Rhetoric has some new products to offer. With their brand new product, Cicero, students can replicate the experience of responding to a judge's question in court or the demands of cold calls. This product helps develop and refine verbal communication skills through tailored feedback on the quality of the student's presentation, providing endless practice opportunities. Using Debrief, students can hone their persuasive legal writing using the same tools that major law firms across the United States leverage to perform better than opposing counsel. Students can learn to write with flair and command of writers at the top firms using Debrief's analytics and drafting tools. Not only can Rhetoric upgrade and enhance your writing skills, but can now also help law students excel in the classroom and the courtroom while alleviating the stress of cold calls and performance demands. If you're interested in a demo, let them know you heard it here first, here from Nate. And to support this podcast, check out Rhetoric in the description below at userhetoric.com. One word, userhetoric.com.
Law students, are you feeling overwhelmed, stressed, or short on time in law school? Maybe you just want someone to show you a step-by-step framework to master the topics you're learning in your classes. I know the pressure you're under, and I've got the perfect solution for you. My course, The Law School Operating System, is proven to help you conquer law school with confidence and ease.
Created by Lisa Blasser, a former guest on the podcast and founder of the Law School Success Institute, this course breaks down every subject into manageable main topics that you run through a comprehensive study system to thoroughly prepare you for class and final exams. No more feeling like you need to know everything all at once in the beginning.
But that's not all, Nate. The Law School Operating System also teaches you how to schedule your studying and time effectively. For every topic, you'll know which study step you're on and when you'll complete it every week of your semester. No more mad dash cram sessions, more time with your loved ones. And with my system, you'll walk into your exams knowing you've given 100% of yourself, that there's nothing more you could have done to succeed, and there's no better confidence than that.
Lisa breaks it down like this: one class, one list of main topics, and one system to master each topic. With recorded and live sessions for students available on her website and partnerships with law schools nationwide, the Law School Operating System is here to help you thrive from day one to the final exam. Ready to take control of your law school journey and operate at your full potential in law school? Visit www.lisablasser.com today and enroll in the Law School Operating System. Be sure to use code LSOSNATE10 at checkout for 10% off the recorded course. That is code LSOSNATE10 at checkout. Living organisms of the earth that are listening to this podcast, this is my conversation with Yeve Chitiga. Miss Yeve Chitiga, welcome to the podcast. How are we doing today?
Hey Nate, I am doing so well. So happy to be here with you after many attempts at scheduling. I'm so glad we made this happen.
Yes, fourth time's the charm, as they say. After many trials and tribulations, we are finally here, sitting here today for a wonderful podcast. I'm excited to have you here today. But Yeve, before we get started, can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. I am a lawyer turned executive coach for lawyers. I am a wife, I'm a mom, and I am proud to be a Zimbabwean-born American, and I am really passionate about giving back and helping to inspire and encourage other people. And so I hope to do a little bit of that through this podcast. And I know, Nate, that that's something that you too are passionate about and that you do through this podcast. So I think this is a great matchup, and I'm happy to be here.
Well, I am more than happy to have you here today, but let's get into the unique journey that you have. You were at Claflin University, that I've never heard of, where I will ask after where that is. But eventually, after Claflin University, you ended up at American University, Washington College of Law. So first, please inform me where Claflin University is. And then secondly, simply put, Yeve, why'd you go to law school in the first place?
Ooh, all right. So Claflin University is the oldest historically Black college and university in South Carolina, a great school that I had great fortune of attending. It's in Orangeburg, South Carolina. And I attended law school like many people do because I wanted to change the world and I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to fight injustice, you know. I declared very early on at a young age that I wanted to either be an actress on one hand or a lawyer. And I spoke with a lawyer. I had to be about seven. I spoke with a lawyer, family friend, who said, well, if you become a lawyer and you go to court, you get to do both. And so I said, oh, okay, sign me up. And from there, just continued down the path of learning more about law until I eventually pursued it in law school.
So, and now I don't know the years, but how many years were there between you graduating and then you arriving at law school?
Ooh, good question. So my initial plan, Nate, was to go straight from college and go straight to law school. That's what I thought I was going to do. However, to understand what happened between college and law school, I have to tell you a little bit more about my journey, which is I am originally from Zimbabwe. And when I was 16, I emigrated to the United States on my own, a plan that my mom had set for me when I was much younger. And I came to the US and attended Claflin University. Why Claflin? Great HBCU, great liberal arts school. Also, my aunt was a professor there. And so my mom thought, well, this is a great soft landing place for you. And I arrived at Claflin and immediately just saw infinite possibilities in terms of how I could grow as a person, as a leader. You know, there were so many things that I learned and that I wanted to experience. And so I did. And I was your typical kind of high achieving immigrant student. And so academically, I was doing well. I was involved in a number of things on the campus, and I, took up leadership positions in a number of things. And what happened is by the time I got to my junior year, I was starting to feel like, I don't know that I want to go straight to school again after this. I'm feeling a little tired. And I spoke with mentors who told me that I should explore looking into internal audit as an interim career before going to law school because internal audit and law were very similar. And so I did exactly that. And I found myself um, applying for basically the equivalent of a summer associate position. Actually, not a summer associate, but like a first year associate position at the time it was called Wachovia Bank, now Wells Fargo, merged with Wells Fargo. And my plan was I would do that for a year, take a break, make some money, and then go to law school. And that year saw me move to Charlotte, North Carolina, and start my career there. And in that year, I moved to London, United Kingdom, and was there for what was supposed to be a very short stint. I think it was like 3 to 6 months, and it ended up being 3 years, including during the financial crisis of '08, including during the merger of Wachovia and Wells Fargo. And so the time between college and law school just kept getting longer and longer. And I took 4 years between college and law school until I finally found myself back in the US and found myself in law school, which is where I had wanted to be all along. But the journey I took to get there was very much necessary, and it actually shaped my legal career. Had I not taken those 4 years, my legal career would have looked very different.
So first I have to say, love that you were in London, home of my Chelsea Blues. I'm a very, very ardent supporter. I don't know if you support Arsenal or Tottenham. It is which one?
Manchester United.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, that's better than Arsenal or Tottenham. It's a better answer. I'm not feeling as bad. But I love to hear that. I love to hear that you were in London. You were at Wells Fargo Bank. You were a senior auditor. You were there from 2007 to 2010, but you finally came back to the United States to go to American University, Washington College of Law. Now, I have to ask, because you said something interesting there that due to that experience, due to going to London, doing have those 4 years in between college and law school, why would your legal career look different if you didn't do those things?
Hmm, that's a great question. So the tiredness that I was feeling, that fatigue that I was feeling, I can now identify it as burnout. I was burnt out in college and I had done all the things, and I had pushed myself to great heights to reach the level of success that I had in college. And working for me was such a welcome change. And it was fascinating for me to be able to like learn all these new concepts that had nothing to do with what I was learning, what I had learned in college. It was like real life world experience. And I really enjoyed it. And London is an amazing place. Like I had some of the best years there, and got to travel Europe and got to meet some amazing, friends and got to really grow up, you know. And the experiences that I had there working for the banks, the international banks, but specifically working in the securities, focusing on the securities departments of those banks, allowed me to have specialized knowledge and experiences that when I showed up to law school and had on my resume these 4 years, all the employers that I would talk to, and I had targeted law firms as like, okay, I want to get a law firm job after law school. Every time I would talk to a law firm employer, whether that was, to try and get a 1L or 2L summer associate position, they would always come back to those 4 years. They weren't that interested in what I was doing in law school. And they would always come back to that. And in my 2L summer, doing a summer associate job at a law firm, one of the partner mentors there said, "Hey, have you considered securities work?" And I said, "No, I haven't actually." And when I went to law school, I'd actually told myself, okay, I've done the banking thing, I've done financial services, now I want to try everything else, you know? And she said, "Well, let's do something together." And we did. And I loved it. I was hooked. And I was like, this is familiar territory. And the rest is quite frankly history because that's my entire legal career has been in the financial services space. Fintech most recently, but otherwise all in financial services. That would definitely not have been the case had I not had 4 years in financial services.
So, in starting at American University, Washington College of Law, we always love talking about the first year of law school. Some people love it, some people hate it. How was it for you?
Hmm. Oh, it was a real shock to my system having worked for 4 years and now returning to student life. And I guess I'm dating myself here, but when I went to college, we didn't carry around laptops to class. Like that wasn't what we did. And so to come back and be in school where like laptops were the mode of like that's what you did, like that was a change. I wasn't accustomed to that, right? Um, and just the level of reading that I had to do was just again very different, both from like having worked and like, college as well, right? So that was different. And not making any money. That was certainly a shock to the system. But I was very focused. I will say that because I had worked, I was very focused. I wasn't so interested in like, oh, I need to go to every party, I need to go to every social gathering, because I was very focused on why I was there. So being an older student helped me in that regard. Um, the first year was tough. My first semester was very challenging, and I did not get the grades that I had hoped for in all of my classes. Um, it was a really tough adjustment for me. I didn't have a stable like apartment situation. I was just like, figuring things out as I was going. And so my second semester was really the opportunity for me to turn everything around. And one of my professors had told me that if you get not so great grades in your first semester and then you turn it around in your second semester, that tells such a beautiful story as opposed to the other way around. And so I did that, and that made it all like better, right, in terms of being able to share this narrative of what I went through, the adjustment, and then turning it around, and learning lessons, etc. And so ultimately ended up on a high note, but it was a tough year for sure.
So moving forward in your law school career, having that prior work experience, sort of having that maturity of being an adult, of living in the real world, having a real job, and sort of having that purpose of knowing why you're there. It's a great purpose to have, and it sort of helps you figure out and continue to work and focus. How valuable was having that throughout law school, knowing that, okay, I know why I'm here, I know what grades I need to get, and I know exactly this is what I want.
It was invaluable. It absolutely was invaluable. I think I had a perspective that, my classmates that hadn't gone um, into the working world before law school didn't have. I was able to, a certain extent, because law school is stressful no matter how you slice it. It's anxiety producing no matter how you look at it. But I think I was able to have this attitude of not sweating every single thing, right? And just kind of having this faith that things would work out, even if I didn't end up crossing and dotting all my I's and doing all the things that people said, you have to do this. If you don't do this, this will happen. If you don't, I just didn't buy into that. And I saw it firsthand with my own career. A lot of people told me that if you didn't get a 1L firm job, it was unlikely that you would get it in your 2L year. That wasn't the case for me. I didn't get one in my first year. But in my second year, I did. And my first year experience was actually amazing. It was really helpful for me to get that, job in my first year. So all of these things that people had said, if you don't do this, then this will happen. I think I was able to look at that and say, I don't really think that's, accurate. In part, I think because I had worked and lived in the real world a little bit. And so that was invaluable for me.
So moving forward in your career, as you said, you eventually landed on financial services and securities work as what you would do as a lawyer. But as I love to ask on this podcast, the significance of finding out what you do want to do, which is very important, very, very important, but also finding out what you don't want to do, being able to narrow your options. Now, you were an associate at Bingham and McCutcheon, but any other experiences, internships, clerkships, whatever they may be throughout law school, how did you figure out what you want to do and what you especially didn't want to do?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Through trial and error. Um, I dabbled in all kinds of things and took all kinds of classes. I did international law classes, didn't interest me as much. I did IP, um, found some of it a bit too technical. I really enjoyed mock trial, which was still me thinking I was going to be on this like litigation path until my second year, summer associate job at Bingham and McCutcheon, where um, I realized, no, I didn't want to do litigation. If this was what it was like, it was nothing like what I had seen in the movies and what I envisioned, right? Um, and quickly was like, no, I don't want to do that. Let me instead steer toward the financial services stuff that I am familiar with and try that out. And throughout my legal career, even as I was working in private practice, continued to just do work in different, spaces of securities and financial services to discover the things that I found most interesting. I also relied on other people telling me what they saw, what they thought, who worked with me, whether that was people more senior to me, mentors, etc., who kind of helped me to say, when you do XYZ type of work, you seem to really do well in that. And I think I'm going to answer a question that you haven't asked, but I'm going to bring it to present day. But one thread that tied through all of my experiences, whether that was working at Wachovia, Wells Fargo, and in private practice, was I always wanted to do something that was impactful. I always wanted to do something that was going to change people's lives. And so the more I practiced financial services, the more I was getting away from that. And in my free time, when I did pro bono, that's where I would find joy in doing pro bono cases where I could like work with individuals and actually see tangible uh, my work having a tangible effect on someone's life. And so that's actually another element of the question of how did I find what I wanted to do? It all led me to where I am today, right, as a coach. And so wanted to actually share that as well.
Yeah, I think it's such an interesting paradox in life when you're doing one thing and then you start to not like it, and then in your free time you start doing other things, and then as time goes on you realize, oh, that free time stuff, I actually like doing that more than what I do now. So it's strange how it works. Doesn't make any sense, but that's usually how life goes. It doesn't make any sense anyway. But I think it's so important to hear something like that for people out there who may be doing something currently, but doing something in their free time that you may not think at first, oh, there's not a lot of value in that. Maybe I can't make money doing that. But as you begin to sort of, peer open the door and sort of look inside and what's going on in there, let me explore that path. It is the tagline of the podcast at the end of the day, that it is all about your unique journey. There's no straight path. But continuing on your own unique journey, you were an associate at Wilmer Hale and then became a senior associate at Wilmer Hale, eventually becoming of counsel at Wilmer Hale. You did that for about 7 years. I think I got my math right there. About 7 years. Now, through doing these experiences, can you talk about being at that firm and sort of climbing the ladder? What sorts of things you should do to be the ideal associate for those about? Is this a good question? Is this not a good question? I'll let you answer.
Yeah. Oh, it's a loaded question because I think you'll get different answers from different people. Um, and I think what most people will probably say is, be willing to learn and be coachable. You don't know, you know very little coming out of law school about how to be a lawyer. And so you have a lot of room to grow and learn from those who've been doing it. And so being coachable, being teachable, is important. And I think identifying what we were talking about, those things that interest you is so important and so key. Because if you're doing work that you enjoy, it just helps when you're working hard and you're working long hours, right? Um, and I would also say that one thing that I didn't do as much, I tried to do it, but didn't do as much is I think having and maintaining interests outside of work, having some kind of outlet so that you can remember that, life doesn't actually revolve around working 24/7. We're now in a different time than when I was a young associate. And mental health is really important. People are talking about burnout and wellness, especially in our profession. And so finding an outlet, finding a hobby, so that you're able to spend your time doing things that energize you outside of work, spending time with things that connect you with other people, causes you care about, et cetera. I would say that's really important as well. Mental health is so important. And yeah, those would be the things that I would say. And I think more than anything, raising your hand and asking for help when you need it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that, of course. I think raising your hand is so important, asking for help when you need it, because sometimes it may seem scary. Sometimes you don't want to ask the stupid question. But as I've come to find out, that many thousands, hundreds of thousands of lawyers are more than happy to help you out, more than happy to answer your questions, especially in terms of mentorship. And this is sort of the mentorship, but how important has mentorship been for you, Yeve, throughout your entire career?
It's been instrumental. Finding people who believed in me, finding people who were living life or working in the way that I aspire to, um, has been critical, I think, because without those people pouring into me and encouraging me, um, I'm not sure that I would have had the longevity, at the firm or, in law, that I've had, without that. And I think even more important than mentors is sponsors, people who are able to say your name in a room and get you opportunities, and people who are able to advocate for you. Um, that's also really key, and it's much needed, in able to for you to be able to advance in your career. There's a point where hard work alone is not going to do it.
Yeah, now this is the second time that we've heard about sponsorship on the podcast. People vouching for you when you're not in the room. They may not know you. They may not even have talked to you before, but the fact that they go in there, they talk about you, they say, this is a person fit for a promotion, this is a person fit to move up the ladder, is so, so important. And it just goes further to make sure that when you're working in any way, shape, or form. Now, I'm a young guy. I don't know, I don't know much about anything, but I always in my life know that just work as hard as I can because someone's probably watching, and you may not even know it, but if you're giving your full 150%, they will notice it and they will talk about it and they will have nice things to say about you. But going forward in your career after Wilmer Hale, you were a senior counsel at Brex and then became the director and assistant general counsel at Brex. Now, can you talk about those experiences and how it sort of led you to start what you have today as a coaching and consultant?
Sure thing. Um, so working in-house really was such a fun and wild ride, especially working at a tech startup. I really enjoyed the work that I did, the innovation and the fast pace, and was able to really put all the training that I'd had at the law firm, into practice, and really enjoyed the autonomy that came with being an in-house attorney and really thinking like a business person. Um, and as far as, the evolution to get to where I am today, I think part of it is what I shared before, that at various points in my life, I was very much searching for something more meaningful beyond what I was doing. And that never really left. And earlier this year, I was gifted with a layoff at Brex. And so I was one of almost, 300 people that were laid off at Brex. And it was a pivotal point for me in my career to really assess what was next. And I've worked with coaches before. In fact, I have a coach now. Um, and so the work that I've done in coaching, I knew the things that I wanted to do in the future. And so when I was gifted with this opportunity to, no longer be with the company, I saw it as a place for me to stop and introspect and think, okay, how do I want to move forward? Sure, I could continue on this trajectory and, continue in financial services and, keep climbing the ladder and all of that. But that's not what I felt in my heart to do. That's not what I wanted to do. And instead, I decided to bet on myself. I decided to take a different route, take the road less traveled, and instead try and actually do something that would bring the impact that I've been seeking, for a long time. And why not do that with the people that I'm most familiar with, the people that I have, um, inside out knowledge of, lawyers, right? Which is a theme in my life of doing things that I have experience in. That's how I ended up in financial services law, right? I did financial services and now I'm an executive coach. Well, who am I coaching? Lawyers. And so that theme continues in my life. But every experience I've had, including even before going to law school, right? Just my life experiences have led me to this moment. I come from a family of people who um, were involved in public service, occupations like nursing, doctors, healthcare, giving back, teachers. And so that's in my blood. And all the things that I have enjoyed, the things that I have done on the side have always involved some layer of giving back, interacting with people one on one, using my creative talents. And so this felt very right for me. And this is what I'm doing. And I'm building this business now. And I like to say I'm a lawyer turned executive coach, um, because I want people to understand that you can chart so many different paths for yourself. Law is not a limiting industry, it's not a limiting profession. It actually opens doors.
Well, I obviously have to agree with that because that's all I talk about on this podcast. That there's so many different doors you could go through. Even if you don't even go to law school, you can still get involved with the legal industry. You can still be within the legal space in some way, shape, or form. Doesn't matter if you went to law school, doesn't matter if you graduated law school and, took your bar and got the Esquire and became a lawyer, became a barred lawyer. It doesn't matter. And even if you are a bar lawyer, there are still other ways, just like yourself, lawyer turned executive coach. I think the best part about it all is that even the executive coaches have coaches themselves. I didn't even realize that. That's a great thing. I thought that was a great tidbit there. But I think what's great about it all is that every experience you had led to this moment, led to what you're doing now. It was all destined. It was all fated to become. It just had to, materialize in reality, as they say. But I want to go back a little bit because you indeed published your own children's book. Now, I may butcher the names here, but it is my first book of Shona and Nadabella. Nadabella. I'm really trying on that one. But you came out with it in 2021. Talk about this children's book. I'm very interested what it is all about, and can you please say the proper name?
Yes, Nate, I'm so glad you asked. So
You got it there.
it's, yeah, my first book of Shona and Ndebele, you were very close, words. And this is a book that showcases the two primary languages of Zimbabwe. And it's a picture book. It's a picture language learning book. And you know what? I'm going to send you a copy, Nate.
Oh wow, thank you so much.
As a thank you, small thank you for having me on. But it's a book that showcases these two primary languages. There's over 16 languages in the country, but these are the two primary languages. And the history behind these languages is these two, groups of people, these two tribes in the country historically have had conflict. And so me putting these two languages together was really a kind of a revolutionary act. But I did so because my family speaks both, and we're teaching our daughter both languages. And I saw a gap in the market in quality, educational, diverse children's language books. The stats show that most children's books are not written by women. Most children's books don't feature, black and brown kids. Most, all of these stats that are just like astounding. Books about Africa, usually about, there's animals in the books as opposed to people and kids. And so all of these reasons spoke to me to be like, you know what, I can't find a quality book for my own child. And I wrote it actually during the time that I was expecting my daughter, and wanted her to have a quality book in her library. And similar to, what I think has happened with your podcast, where you put something out into the world and then it took a life of its own. That's what this book did. I wrote it thinking, oh, I'm going to help other Zimbabweans in the diaspora who might need a resource to teach their kids these languages. That's what I thought I was doing. But instead, what this book did was really serve as a window, to families who wanted to expose their children to different languages, different cultures, no matter where they were from, no matter what they look like. And it served as a mirror to those families who were like, oh, yeah, we're Zimbabwean, or oh, we're, of African origin, right? Or whatever the case may be. And so served as both a window and a mirror. And it allowed me to get this book all across the world. And this was during the pandemic. And so, times were very different. But I remember receiving orders from Japan. I never marketed to anybody in Japan. I don't know anybody in Japan. But this book had so much reach and opened so many doors for me and continues to do that. And so it's been such a blessing. It is one of the things that I'm most proud of because it was an idea that I turned into reality and I learned as I went. I didn't go to school to be an author. And I self-published this book, and did so at the height of the pandemic as well. And so um it's literally been the gift that keeps on giving.
I love what you said there at the end, taking an idea and bringing it into reality, because that's something I did. That's something you have done multiple times over your life, and I think it's just an amazing thing to put out there because it's true. You can have an idea floating around your head. You just got to grab it and then bring it into reality and make those action steps to make sure that it happens. But it is just a pure fact that you can take any idea that you have and make it into a reality, and you certainly have through this book. And I thank you for sending it out to me. That's wonderful stuff. I will be holding on to that until my future kids come into the world, and I will be sharing it with them and they can learn some Zimbabwe language. I mean, I might read it too because I need to do some learning. I'm learning new things today, including Zimbabwe. How would you even say that? The Zimbabwean?
Yeah, Zimbabwean,
Oh, wow.
Zimbabwean
Oh,
languages.
there
Yeah,
we go. There we go.
yeah.
Okay. So I'm learning new things here on the podcast, and now I'm learning new languages. This is great. I'm enjoying myself here. But something that you do in your coaching, you chart a path forward on purpose and within your own purpose. And of course, you lead with empathy and warmth. Now, what does all that mean?
Yeah, that's a good question. Essentially, what it means, Nate, is I serve as a guide to people who want to really understand why they're here. And we do that intentionally through carefully curated steps. And we just take one step at a time, similar to what you said about, what we're talking about, having an idea and bringing it to fruition. Coaching is all about the future. What do you want your future to look like? So we talk about what that looks like for you, what your ideas are for that, what hopes and dreams you have, and then we figure out how do we make it happen. And I like to say that I am a personal trainer for the heart, mind, and soul.
Oh, I love that. I might steal that, Yeve, I'll be honest. But I think it's all amazing. And of course, I promised the philosophy quotes before, and I bring one today. The first step, or the no, let me recoil here, get the quote right. But the path or the path, see, I'm messing up the quote here, but the path to 1,000 steps starts with one step. Some Asian philosopher said that. I'm forgetting his name, but he did say it, and it is even, but it just goes back to that message that it's just one step at a time. You do a little each day, and then you look over, you do a little thing each month, and then you realize, oh my God, I've done something big for an entire year. And now that idea may be coming to a reality. Whatever you're looking to do may be building and building and building. Exponential growth. One of the greatest secrets of the universe is doing a little each and every day. It's compounding that interest. It's wonderful stuff. But yeah, we're now down to our last 5 questions. The first of the 5 questions, something I've seen throughout my entire journey doing this podcast, but the legal industry seems to be moving in a certain direction with these new technologies. Maybe they be AI, maybe they be software, whatever they may be. But yeah, this is the tech stack question per se. What does your tech stack look like, either within your business or personally that you use? What sorts of recommendations do you have for people out there? What do you use on a daily basis?
Hmm. Obviously AI is like, there's a lot of buzz about AI, and I am both a coach, for lawyers, and I'm also a lawyer, right? And as a coach, I'm a content creator as well, right? That's how I market my business. And there are a lot of people who use AI in their marketing. My philosophy is if you're going to use AI, you need to go behind the AI and still humanize it, and still make it sound like you, because it's very clear when someone has used AI in marketing. And so personally, I personally like to use my own, words, um, and not use AI as much. I rely on it here and there, but I don't think it's a mainstay for me in my business at this point. Um, and then I think in terms of other tech, certainly for like client management, I love, Dubsado, for example. And there's lots of variations of Dubsado for client management systems. Um, One of my favorite apps is Canva. I love Canva. Um, and I think anything that allows you to create and be artistic, there's so many versions of that right now. There's so many video apps and like video is taking over LinkedIn, right? That's what everyone says. And so it's like these video apps, I myself am slowly getting into that. So I don't have necessarily like big recommendations there. But I think, we embrace the technology. We embrace it, but we still remember that we're human, even in the use of AI for legal research, right? There have been so many examples of how AI has gotten it wrong, and there's consequences when that happens, right? And so using technology to the extent that it makes sense, right? And not being overly reliant on it, I think makes sense.
Yeah, I agree with that. And to go towards the talk about ChatGPT using it for marketing. I spot it very well. I've been using ChatGPT since the beginning of college. So I know the words very well. I know what it spits out more often than not, so I can identify it very quickly. I use it every so often. I use it for ideas. I wouldn't say every so often. I do use it a lot. I use it a lot. But I just, I'm not a wizard with it, but I've done a lot of research, in terms of prompts, in terms of engineering a prompt, the ways that you can use it to sort of humanize, like you said, humanize the AI, make it more accessible, make it give you the information that you really need. And of course, Canva. I pay my $15.99 every single month for Canva Pro. So I love Canva just as much as the next guy. But fourth to last question here, Yeve, live on the Lawyers in the Making podcast. What are your book recommendations for people? Doesn't have to be about the law, just some of your favorite books you've ever read, something you give a gift to someone.
Absolutely. I would say right now, the book recommendation I've been talking to about a lot of to with a lot of people is Set Boundaries and Find Peace. It's written by Nedra Tawwab, I think that's how you say her name. She's a therapist, and I think she might even be like a clinical psychologist. I don't know, but she's very educated, very experienced. And she has this book that really explains what boundaries are, how to set them, and why they're important. And what I have found in both my legal practice and then as a coach for lawyers, right, is that boundaries are at the root of a lot of our issues. We find ourselves frustrated, stressed, resentful, angry, upset, whatever, with people, with situations, usually because we haven't inserted a clear boundary. You're working too much and working, all around the clock because you haven't said, hey, actually I'm, at capacity. Please can I get an extra week or whatever that might look like? You know, that relative friend, whoever it is that is always doing XYZ. Well, that's because you haven't inserted a healthy boundary. Right? Boundaries with yourself. Boundaries are the root cause of a lot of issues that people face. And I think it's such a helpful book. It's practical. Um, and it's just something that I think we all need to learn a little bit more about and something that is getting more traction. Again, as we talk about mental health and wellness, right? Especially in this profession. And so set boundaries, find peace. Highly believe in that and think the book is a great place to start.
Well, I love that because it's a new book recommendation. I love new books and I love new recommendations on the podcast. So that's just quite wonderful. I've never heard of that book and now I do. It's in my mind now. But third to last question here, Yeve. What are the types of things that you consume, not food, consume on a daily basis, either that be through social media, so LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, I don't know if I'm probably forgetting something. Any podcasts you listen to that you recommend? Any Substacks or news articles that you would recommend? What is crossing the transom of Yeve's mind on a daily basis?
Oh, well, two things. LinkedIn, because I'm on there daily. Um, I think LinkedIn is definitely an underutilized platform by most lawyers. It's a wealth of information on there, wealth of community, and even aspiring lawyers as well. Just building your community on there and being active on there for me has been quite literally. And so I'm on there daily. The second one has to involve some kind of kindergarten related book or something because I have a kindergartner and I do something in that space daily. Um, yeah. So those are my two things. No enlightenment there other than, like I said, LinkedIn. But that's what I do literally on a daily basis is like something involving my kids, like work, and then LinkedIn.
I mean, well, I'll tell you what, there's a beauty in simplicity. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. You have those two things, you do it every day, you do it consistently every day. The value and fruition will come and continue to come over time. But second to last question here, Yeve, what does an ideal Friday night and Sunday morning look for you?
Friday night and Sunday morning. Oh, okay. Ideal Friday night. I'm with my family. We're watching a great movie. It's movie night. We've got popcorn. We've had a nice dinner, laughter. We might also play a game, but very chill in our PJs, having fun, and just spending time together, quality time together. And so that's usually how our Friday nights look. And then Sunday mornings, nice, leisurely, kind of late start to the morning because every other day is a very early start. So leisurely start, nice hot beverage. We typically make our way to church. If we don't make our way, then we'll do like a nice breakfast at home. And we just take the day super easy. Yeah, it's like a slow, relaxing, winding down from the weekend and the week.
So my follow-up question, what are some of your favorite movies? I love asking that.
Ooh, ooh, this goes back to who who dominates my house. Oh, let me see. I will say most recently, my favorite movie was Encanto. It was a children's movie, but certainly had lots of lessons there for adults, and for life. So Encanto was a really good one. Um, and then I'll say, let me see if I can find an adult movie that I really enjoyed. Oof, goodness. It's been such a long time. Um, I like the Bad Boys franchise. The most recent one, Bad Boys 3, was a little meh, you know, but I otherwise really like the Bad Boys franchise. Um, yeah. So I've got both an adult one and like more PG-13 one.
I love it. I love it so much. I've actually never seen Encanto, so now I have a new movie to watch. So that's
Yes.
great. And I have seen some parts of the Bad Boys movies. I haven't seen them all though. So now I got new things to do. I'm learning new language,
Yes.
watching new movies. So this is all great stuff. But final question here, Yeve. I do this at the end of every single episode, but what are your words of wisdom for the aspiring law students, the current law students, and the legal professionals out there in the world?
Mhm. So I will say that believe that you have a voice that matters and use it. Take up space, leave your mark. on the world, whatever that might look like.
Beautifully said, simply said, quite poetic of you. I love it so much. But Yeve, that is the podcast. That is the episode. So thank you so much for coming on here. Spread your wisdom, spread your experiences. And for everyone out there listening, be sure to check us out, lawyersinthemaking.substack.com, lawyersinthemaking, one word, substack.com. And I will see you all in the next one.